something really different for us at Networking Now. I've never done something, I don't want to call it medical, but something maybe today the conversation, like I said, is all about eggs. So something different for us. But I think it's something I do want to start, and I have. Oh, why we're here. And one of the reasons I want to say is that I decided to do this is after I met Neha for the first time. I happened to come to Luma with a very open mind. A friend invited me, and when I came, I met Neha, and I was like, I have to do this for the community because, when I meet inspiring women, I just have to bring them to talk to us because that's my thing. Whoever's been here the longest knows that's my thing. And really, just by hearing her chat for 10 minutes, I was like, wow. Not only because she built a business which she sold, I'm going to make her tell you a little bit about that. That's of course number one. But two, how open she was in her journey of IVF and why she created Luma. And that's one of the discussions we're having. Guys, please ask questions. That's most important. I think it's important that we all ask what's on our mind. No one's judging here. No one's really going to remember who asked what. At the end of the day, you're most welcome to even ask after if you're uncomfortable. But just keep it, fluid. I have a bunch of questions, so after that, we can go. But I'm going to first introduce you guys. Secondly, thank you for having us and the community here for such an important topic at this beautiful place. Like Krishika said, the place is so striking. So Neha, of course, is a second-time founder who previously founded Fiternity, the largest online fitness portal, and has now started Luma, stemming from her personal struggles in fertility, which we'll talk about as well. Dr. Vishesha Yadav, who's joining us today, is a senior consultant in fertility and IVF, a double board certified gynecologist, and fertility specialist with over 8 years of experience. Dr. Vishesha is known for her personalized approach and expertise in both PCOS and IVF. I did hear a lot of people saying that they had PCOS as well. Okay, Neha, I'm going to start with you and talk about how you were one of the co-founders of Fiternity, which had its own space in the health and wellness world. What made you really, first, of course, you sold that. So tell us a little, because we're all entrepreneurs in this room and we love that conversation. Yeah. When you sold that and your journey, and how did you decide to start Luma? Like, what was it for you?
For me, Shan, it has always been serendipity that has played a role, and I do feel like it continues playing a role. When I didn't have any intention to start Fiternity. I was in a consulting, cushy, happy job, and I got married, and I was basically in the new place that I was living. I was trying to find a yoga class. This is back in 2013 when startup wasn't a sexy word, right? And I just decided that there has to be a marketplace and you have to be able to book a session without buying a membership. That was the thesis. I left my job, told my manager, please take me back. If I come back, please, I'll need a job to survive. So those are, I'll try this. If it doesn't work out, please take me back. And with that, I just started, and then multiple pivots, a roller coaster ride. We ended up raising 4 rounds of funding, and Fiternity was acquired by Cult. We got to 12 million users, about 400 crores of annual revenue. So of course, great journey. And Luma again was serendipity because there were like some 6-7 ideas that I was working on when I knew I was in my PureFit lock-in period. But none stuck, right? Like beyond a week, I would start feeling like this is not for me, there's no product market fit possible, etc. And then I think I went through my own fertility journey, which I'll talk more about. And basis that journey, I felt like there has to be something done in the fertility space in India, and I don't know what, right? And at that point of time, I realized that it is actually something that's stemming from my own journey, which also Fiternity was. And I decided to sort of give it a shot in terms of just understanding what can be done, right? And I think just talking about my journey, I say this with a lot of pride that I'm the self-proclaimed queen of IVF. I never wanted kids till 34. I was building Fiternity, and at 34, something just switched in me. And me and my husband were like, listen, we're married for like 7 years, and let's have babies. We thought it'll be easy, we're healthy, we'll do it. And what followed on was like 3 years, like 6 IUIs, 7 IVF cycles, 5 retrievals, 8 transfers, and a lot of procedures. And typical type A personality that I am, I would keep researching and keep thinking, what is happening? Why is this happening? What is unexplained fertility, etc. Right? And during that journey, I would sit at these doctors' clinics because I've visited every doctor in Bombay. And I would sit at these doctors' clinic and I would just sort of start thinking about why is nobody thinking from the customer's point of view, right? Because I would ask these questions, right? Simple things, right? Why don't you send a nurse at home for injections? Because you're supposed to take some injections during the IVF journey. And then the doctor would be like, yeah, we're supposed to send, but we don't. And I'm like, why? Who will take all this effort and magajmari, right? So I'm like, but why, right? Like, why not do it for the person? Because that's what is needed in that journey. So basically, a long answer to your question is that I saw a lot of friction points
Yeah.
that I went through in my own journey. Finally, it reached a point where I said that I have to solve it, and I don't think I'll be living in peace till I actually end up doing it. And that's what made me start.
And your
Numa.
Excel sheet outside every doctor, I remember.
Yeah.
She said by the end of every visit, she had an Excel sheet which she would talk about what's
friction
missing.
points.
Yeah, literally what's missing. And
Yeah.
okay, so I want to also talk to you about how, this can also be a not very human approach. I think when going to a doctor, we're just like, it's your time, get in, what are your questions, here's the medicine, leave. There's no, and of course today we're all about community, so we ask people, in a women's community, you'll say, hey, have you done IVF? Or, today we're more open to talk about it. So what was it for you? Because I walked in here and I was like, wow, this really feels like a little baby clinic, or like feels like warm, what was it for you that made it more human? What is it that maybe you didn't feel when you were going through the process?
Yeah. So I feel like, Apurva's here and you all met her, right? After my journey, we wanted to validate if what I felt in terms of friction points and how sterile the whole experience was, is it actually what other people feel as well, right? And Apurva and me ended up talking to over 200 women to wanting to really validate, and you all are sort of entrepreneurs, right? The idea would be to validate if this is a problem bigger than what you think it is, right? And everybody came back and said that the space in which they went to do their fertility journey or explore or just understand felt just very intimidating, right? And hence our plan was that how does it not feel like you're on a conveyor belt and you're a file, but you're actually a real person and you can be helped in a way that is actually empathetic, non-judgmental, and made simple for what works for you, right? And that's the approach that we basically intended to sort of do. So the place doesn't feel like a clinic, right? Every person is assigned a care specialist, right? Who's a non-medical person to just help you navigate the journey, answer all the queries. Everything is simplified when it comes to just knowing your fertility timeline, understanding if you need to go through a pre-conceiving sort of counseling session, or if you're in a IVF journey, right? Every journey is different. So that's what we've tried to do here.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on to Dr. Vishesha and ask her finally my first question.
Yes.
Dr. Vishesha, thank you for being here and chatting with
Thank
us.
you.
I think to start off with, I met a lot of people today. I mean, I asked them for the first time at networking now events, what is your age? I usually don't say, how old are you? And I did end up asking, and I was pleased to know that there are a lot. I'm 37, going to be 38 this year, and I was pleased to know there's so many in their 30s, like 30, 31, 32. So I think I want to start by asking, what is the right age to freeze your eggs to begin with? What is the last age you can freeze, like in the sense, what's the last time I can freeze my eggs? Is there an age that I have to stop to freeze my eggs? And what's the ideal age to freeze your eggs?
Okay. So to answer your question, there is actually no magic number. But according to studies which have been done worldwide, they say that any time between your late 20s, so anywhere between 26 to 30 or early 30s, that is 31, 32, 33, that's actually the ideal age to freeze your eggs. Because if you see in Indian women post 35, we as compared to Western women attain menopause earlier. There are studies to show 6 years earlier. So the process of that starts in our system almost 10 years earlier. So we can freeze eggs even at 25, even at 40 for that matter. There's no average age ki iske baad aap nahi kar sakte. We have had women even coming at 43, 44 to freeze their eggs. But the question is, what is the success rate you get if you're freezing your eggs later? If you do it earlier, that is within say early 30s or late 20s, you have at least a 70 to 80% chance of having a baby out of those eggs whenever you want to use it in the future. So to put it in short, the sooner the better. because at that time you tend to get more number of eggs, so you're done with it in one cycle, and that gives you a higher chance of pregnancy in the future.
Okay. And can we just tell them what the AMH test is? Because a couple asked me and I
Right.
didn't know what
Yes.
answer really. I just said it's how good your eggs are.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's the wrong answer.
AMH test is just a simple blood test. It can be done on any day of your period. It's not related to that. It basically gives us an idea of your ovarian reserve, meaning what is the number of eggs in each of your ovaries. Now, AMH is one way to understand. The second thing that we do is a quick scan on an ultrasound, which helps us understand what is the egg count. And then we correlate both AMH and AFC. Now, ideal AMH is anywhere between 2 to 4. Okay, that's how we measure it. So anything more than that is suggestive of maybe PCOS. Anything less than that is when you should be a little more proactive about thinking about your fertility timeline.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I want to talk about the consult. So we're all here for a consult. We all want to know what it is. I wish someone, like I was chatting with Nikki, I wish someone had told me when I was younger to freeze my eggs, you know, and I actually got my fibroid surgery done. I wish someone had told me that I could have removed my eggs at that point, but no, we don't talk about it. So what is the period between consultation to actually doing it? Because I'm sure there are people nervous and, you know, we don't know the process, but how do you go about actually doing it?
Right. So the biggest, mistake what people do is from the time they decide to the time they actually do it. That usually is a very long gap. You know, somebody probably thought at 30, but ended up doing it at 34 because at the end of it, they do want to do it. So what we start with is first a basic consult that happens after your AMH test, a basic ultrasound or a scan as I told you. And once you are ready after these reports, we usually give it say 2 to 3 months just to optimize your health, make sure your other hormones are under control, make sure if you have any medical conditions that is corrected before we take you for this procedure. But again, that being said, if somebody has a very low AMH, we would not even like to wait for those 2 to 3 months, because here the key is that the sooner you go in and retrieve those eggs and freeze them, the better chance you have in the future. But yes, at least 2 to 3 months to holistically get your body into its optimum manner and then do it.
Actually, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
You know, Dr. Vishesha has done egg freezing herself.
Yes.
And I feel like if a doctor talks from their own experience, really sort of helps, right? For me, that has been like a game changer whenever I speak to her, because there's just so much context because she's gone through herself, right? So it'll be great if you can share what an egg freezing cycle would be.
Yeah, that would be lovely.
So as I just answered your question, like that time, between deciding to do it and doing it, I went through the same thing. I decided at 30, but ended up doing it at 32. And because I had a low AMH, I had to do it twice. So I had to undergo 2 cycles of egg freezing. And that's when I thought that what if I had done it when I was 30, I would probably had to do just 1 cycle. But through my journey as a patient, when I was, on the other side of the table, I realized that first of all, many people don't talk about it, okay? And after talking about it, they probably just end up talking about it and they don't want to do anything about it. The biggest mistake is, people thinking, "Acha, I have time. Abhi to maine socha bhi nahi hai. Baad mein dekhenge kya hota hai." But what I realized is that when you are actually in that process, it starts from day 2 of your period. You don't even realize how those 10 days of injections and 3-4 scans are going on, because you're working throughout those 10 days. You are in your routine schedule, everything. It's not like you put a pit stop to your life and go and do this. So those 10 days I was completely working. I used to self-administer those injections, which again you can self-take it yourself. And after those 10 days, there was just that one day wherein I was, to take leave just for the egg retrieval process. Just that day. So once I did it the first time, I was like, okay, it's not that bad. I can actually do it the second time and get to at least a good number of eggs that I have frozen for myself. So in short, the procedure is not as overwhelming as people tell it to be. Oh, it's painful, you have to go through so much, why so many hormones? Not really. Because after those 10 days, once the eggs are retrieved, you will get your periods in the next 10 days or so, and all the hormones are flushed out of your system. So there's no long-standing permanent side effect or anything which most of the people are concerned about. It's only limited to that period cycle.
And if I can ask a very specific question, are there lots of injections pre-retrieval?
Yes, so the reason we give you injections is because we want most of the eggs in your ovaries to grow. Every month you ovulate one egg. The goal here is to get as many as possible, and again that depends on your AMH value. So yes, injections are daily. They may cause some discomfort, but they are not painful because they are not like the usual injections which bachpan se we take on our butt. It's not really like that. They are those tiny injections which are literally just like a small pinch you feel. And as we mentioned, we also offer at home administration, so you don't really have to come all the way here to take them. But yes, 10 days of injections is important so that we can get many eggs growing and retrieve them.
Okay. This we'll take the questions. And the other thing I want to ask is that after it's done, you go through the retrieval. After how long can you go back to work? How much rest is needed?
So the good part is that there is hardly any downtime. People go back to work even the same evening. Some people again feel maybe one day chutti we'll take, that is the next day. But I went back to work the very next day. So it's not like you have to keep those 3-4 days just to rest it out at home. Not at all. Very few patients might just want to take a days off, but otherwise most of them go back to work the next day.
Coming to my other question, this is a bit stereotypical, but it's probably at some level true. Everyone has always told me, because I've had weight on me and I've been on the bigger side, that my AMH levels are probably lower because of that. But Dr. Vishesha, you are very fit and you said your AMH levels were low as well. So can we just talk about some of the contributing factors to why the AMH level is low, and how with maybe better lifestyle changes, how we
Correct. So the thing is that we are all born with a certain number of eggs, and the most important factor here is obviously genetics. So the age at which your mother has attained menopause is also a very interesting factor. If in case she has attained menopause before 40, then that should actually alert you that, okay, I need to test my AMH at 30 and take the necessary steps. Again, AMH is not really influenced by weight or lifestyle, or if you eat healthy or if your weight is healthy, it's not really going to decrease. The known factors for low AMH, number one is smoking. Yes, that tends to decrease your AMH and in fact cause premature menopause. Drinking, not really. Other than that, if you have conditions like endometriosis, then maybe your AMH can go a little low. So somebody who's dealing with that again needs to be a little proactive while doing the AMH value. Other than that, it's not really your lifestyle ki, if you are healthy, eating well, exercising regularly, that your AMH can't be decreased. More so it's to do with your age factor. Especially if you're in that cusp of 33, 34, 35, all the more reason to freeze your eggs.
Okay. I'll take some questions after this, my last two questions. Once the eggs are frozen, what do we do after that?
Yes. So once your eggs are frozen, they can actually be frozen for forever. Okay. But according to our Indian laws, the government of India says that you're allowed to freeze it for a period of 10 years. And post that, if you have not used it by then you can always apply for a special permission from the national board, and they tell you what to do with it. But most of the times we see that women who freeze their eggs do come back to use them in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Nobody really waits for the next 10 years. So yeah, once you freeze them, their quality is the same at the age at which you have frozen. Even if you want to use it post 40, their quality is the same. That's the beauty of it.
Okay, and they lie with the clinic you do it at?
Yes, it will be stored at this facility itself in the embryology lab that you guys had a tour. And whenever you are ready to get pregnant, you will first always try on your own. In case you don't conceive within 3 to 6 months of trying, then you know that you have already stored something and you can always go back to them, because that will always give you a higher chance of pregnancy. So that's when your partner comes into the picture. That's when the sperm comes into the picture. So then the eggs that are frozen are thawed, they are mixed with the sperms, the embryos are made and then put inside you. So that's how the process works when you want to use them.
Okay. That's covered. Okay. Let's talk about for those exploring IVF. Can we move on to IVF a bit? If there's anyone who may think about it, somebody who already has a partner and wants to
Yeah,
explore
they can do either embryo freezing,
yeah.
which is
That's what I wanted
for
to
the
bring up. I
future.
didn't know how. Yeah.
Yeah.
So embryo freezing and then save that and use it at any point.
Yes.
Okay.
So for couples who are married and who are still not ready to have a family, career or finances or whatever, we see a lot of couples nowadays who come between 30 to 35, and that's when we advise them embryo freezing. So again, it is very much similar to egg freezing. The only difference here is that the sperm comes into the picture. So hence, instead of freezing eggs, we tell you to freeze embryos, because embryo is a sturdier cell, right? It is hundreds of cells while egg is a single cell. So that has a little higher success rate when you're freezing embryos as compared to eggs. But if you're single and if you're not sure about your partner, then definitely egg freezing.
Okay. So I'm going to ask the more technical question. I'm reading it, but for those exploring IVF, what's the biggest misconception about the process, and how does having frozen eggs change or improve IVF success rates?
So I think the biggest misconception, as I told you, is most of the times what we hear from patients is that, I thought I had time, and that's why I waited. And, my friend got pregnant at 36, so why can't I get pregnant at 35? That's the biggest misconception. But everybody is different. Like, we see women who get pregnant easily at 38 versus women at 31 who are really struggling to conceive. So everybody is different. That's one. Secondly, I feel women feel that if they have frozen their eggs, they have to 100% undergo IVF in future. That is not the case. This is just like a backup, just like an insurance, so that in case you need to use it in future, you can come back and use it. And your next question was about frozen.
Yeah, does it change the success rates?
Not at all. So enough evidence throughout the world that whether you freeze your eggs or sperms or embryos, or whether you do a fresh IVF cycle wherein you're not freezing, the cycle in which you're creating the eggs or the embryos, you're transferring in the same cycle. So both the things have similar success rates. So there's no difference.
So it might be an inappropriate question, but what if I've frozen my eggs and 3 years from now I don't want those eggs anymore?
Correct.
Then what?
Correct. So then you get back to us and then you tell us, okay, doctor, now maybe I don't just want a child, or I have already had one. So then we give you two options. One is that you discard whatever you have created. Second is that you choose to donate it for scientific research. Okay. So again, this is done with your consent, but it is never used for somebody else. So don't feel that if you have, eggs are stored here, you probably just use it for somebody else. It doesn't really work that way.
Okay, and my last question before I open it up, second last, is IVF emotionally and physically more demanding when you use frozen eggs compared to when it's fresh, right?
Correct.
Yeah, naturally.
Yeah. So when we are doing egg freezing, we are only talking about fertility preservation. At that time, you're not really going through that mental stress of, oh my God, it's not working, oh my God, it's not working. Versus when you're actually trying to get pregnant and it's not happening, that's when IVF can be a little, financially and emotionally draining. So in order to not go through that, that's when we advise patients ki do this procedure of freezing your eggs or embryos when you are not really thinking about getting pregnant. Plus, you are doing it at a younger age. So it's going to give you a higher chance of success. Versus when you are actually trying and not conceiving, that can get a little taxing for you. Because it's that anticipation every cycle ki, oh my God, why it's not happening?
Okay. Neha, before I open it up, anything else you want to share about what Luma is doing differently? Because I remember you mentioned you went to so many doctors, and that was what harrowed you and got you to start.
Yeah, so I think, two things that really sort of bothered me in my journey, which also sort of led me to start Luma, is because I think one, the awareness levels are low, right? If I look back, the biggest regret I have, when I was building Fraternity, nobody told me that in case you ever want to have kids, create an insurance policy by just freezing your eggs, right? That option did not exist, or maybe I was not told that option, or I didn't reach out to the right doctor for that option, right? Which I feel like every woman who's financially independent should be biologically independent as well, right? And that understanding, awareness and decision should be yours, right? If you choose to not do it, it is your decision, right? But at least when you look back, you know that I had that option and I decided, right? Which I feel is just so important and so empowering, whatever you decide, right? So I feel like that's one thing that we are doing, and you know the AMH test which you all do, which you all will do here, will tell you exactly where you are. Like Dr. Vishesha shared, is it immediate? Is it short term? Is it long term? So the idea is not to get scared. The idea is to know where you stand, and then you can take a call, right? And that's something that I would sort of urge my younger self to sort of, I wish I would have done, right? And I think the second thing is that if you go to any other clinic, or if you've experienced the TTC, like trying to conceive sort of journey, yeah, there's an acronym for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
TTC.
Somebody asked me, also your TTC. I'm like, what? Yeah. So yeah, I was TTC for 3 years. Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah.
So yeah, so basically, if you're actually DTC, it is a very tough journey, and it is actually not just the hormones and the injections and the physical toll. It's a lot of emotional toll as well, right?
Yeah.
And it's very important to get sort of that holistic care with somebody who's guiding you and also supporting you end to end, right? So I feel like to just equip yourself better, right? Even if you want a option of saying that, listen, I may or may not want kids in the future, but this is that bit that you're doing so that even the next process is easier, right? So yeah, I think these were the two major learnings that I had during my journey.
Okay, sorry, I'm thinking sort of one more question. Is while I've frozen my eggs, can I also conceive naturally?
Yes.
Yes, very much. So, as I said, only if you do not get pregnant within 3 to 6 months of whenever you are willing to try, then you come back and use what you have frozen. And when once frozen, then yes, pregnancy is via IVF. But otherwise, you can very much naturally get pregnant. There are patients who come, they freeze their eggs or embryos, they conceive their first child, but then that time, they are like, oh my God, I want a second child now. And that's when they come and use what they have frozen, which was actually for their first child. So it definitely helps them in the longer run.
Okay, and last question. So I was chatting with some people who were like 28, 29, 30, 31. And I think, how is it that you convince members at home that this is what you want done?
Correct. Very good question. Yeah.
You may not have a partner, you may not have a husband at this point, but you
Correct.
also still, want to, love can come at 40 also.
Of course. Or even beyond that.
Yeah.
I actually recently met somebody. I mean, she came this morning, and she's a friend's friend, and she's 32. Went through a bad breakup of 6-7 years of being with somebody, and actually her dad came and told her that I think you should do egg freezing. So I think India's changing.
Oh,
I
lovely.
think parents are understand, and I was like, wow, that's amazing.
Yes.
Right?
Take back that story.
Yeah.
No, actually, like seriously, we do see parents nowadays who are, really open towards these, and in fact, they send their kids ki, at least go and get your fertility evaluated. Ki where do you stand? But yes, I can understand that sometimes parents can also feel a little overwhelmed. Ki ye sab kyun karna hai? Just देखेंगे बाद में शादी कर लो. Just yeah. But during those times, I would urge you to get your parents to the clinic so that we can help them understand what we are actually trying to do and how it is good for you in the long run.
Also adding to what she said, we recently, last week, had a patient who came with her partner, her parents and her in-laws. So we had the whole family here. And I think our doctors do a great job in counseling them on what it really means and scientifically explaining them. But if that is too intimidating, we also have fertility advisors who have spoken to her parents and in-laws separately, privately, to make them understand what it means. So if a doctor consultant appointment is too intimidating, you can even start with just a fertility advisor, which is less clinical and less formal.
India's really changing. Full families coming from a wedding planner to a egg
I remember
freeze.
2 Indias of Veer Das,
Yeah.
what he had said. So one India is where people we have a lot of parents who are coming and telling their girls to freeze their eggs, but we also come from an India where the in-laws are telling no, try naturally. IVF is not natural. Why do you want to do that?
But I feel like today, I would want today's modern Indian independent woman to, if they are able to go for a vacation to Bali, this is gonna, I mean, please do this, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
if you can take
Ensure
a
your
independent financial
future.
decision, this is an insurance policy.
It's about agency.
Yeah.
Correct. It's agency. Exactly. At the end of the day.
And my last question, last, last. But they know me very well, I always do this, is we can't let you go because we are an entrepreneur platform, and I think this is more selfish. I want to know, since you killed it with Fiternity, what are your plans for Luma? What's the dream, and what is that one thing that you'd be like, I did it again?
But you see, Luma comes from a very different space, and
Personally.
very, very personal space. And every morning, I mean, I know that I made it not to sort of get to break even or XYZ, but I made it to make the experience better, and people have the women have the agency, and couples have a better TTC journey. And I think when will I feel that I killed it? I feel when we're out there celebrating, I don't know, 10,000 pregnancies.
Yeah.
Hopefully soon. I think that's
A
the
freezer
vision.
full of eggs.
Yeah, a freezer
full of eggs.
But I think honestly, I will feel not on those numbers, but I will feel like we experienced XYZ, and then we came to Luma, and that changed our game.
Yeah.
And we felt more at ease.
Yeah. We were laughing because I think Apurva was telling us how somebody thought that in your decor you had put eggs here for people to see it. I was like, oh my God, what the hell? But on that note, any questions from you guys, please ask. Like, I just want to give an example. I had asked when I had GBS, can you still do this? You know, just feel free to keep it very personal. Go ahead, Hira. Just introduce yourself in one line.
Hi, so I'm Hira. I'm the founder of the Yogi Lab. I'm a kids yoga and a fertility yoga teacher. But my question to you is, firstly, I want to say thank you. Thank you for this safe space. I have had a lot of students, and personally also as a woman, I feel that this is a very warm environment. So congratulations and thank you. So my question to you is, besides this, what are the other lifestyle precautions that one can take? You mentioned that a holistic approach. There is genetics that plays a role. There is lifestyle that plays a big role. Do you all provide like a holistic approach to this guiding? And second, if embryo, so how many embryos do you recommend to freeze if someone's choosing to go for embryo? Because what's the success rate versus egg freezing?
Yeah.
So maybe I'll take the holistic
Yeah,
question, you
yeah.
please add on. I think holistic is something that's actually very close to my heart. After having about 3 to 4 failed cycles, I was told with low AMH, I'll have to go for egg donor. And I didn't know such a thing existed. And basically, I think that was the turning point for me to focus on my holistic journey, to say that let me do everything it takes. And I was able to sort of have babies with my own eggs. I think we are trying to sort of integrate that, and it's foundational health, and you would know this, which is really the base of nutrition, supplements, working out better, moving better, psychological counseling, acupuncture, IV drips. So it's an integration of foundational health at the end of the day, which will end up in feeling better, and hence sort of better eggs and better outcomes. Please add something.
Yeah. So, as you asked, how many embryos do we need to get to a pregnancy? Again, let's go back a little bit. We first talk about how many number of eggs we need. So, a good number is anywhere between 10 to 15 eggs. Now, some people get that in one cycle. Some people might need to do 2 or even 3 to get to those number. Why we need 10 to 15 eggs is because there is a dropout rate at every stage. Meaning, if at all you are getting 12 eggs, for example, we freeze 12 eggs, and whenever you want to use them in future, when we thaw those 12 eggs, maybe out of those 12, 11 will recover. Okay? If you have frozen it earlier, maybe all 12 will recover. Out of those 12 eggs, when we fertilize it with the sperm, again, the sperm quality also matters. So we also concentrate a lot on male fertility, male evaluation, all of that. 12 eggs, 12 sperms, when we fertilize both, after that, maybe out of those 12, 10 will fertilize. Okay, so there's a dropout rate of 2. Out of those 10, we then culture them or make them grow in the lab that you see here. Maybe out of those 10, 7 or 8 will go ahead to form day 3 embryos. That is the first initial form of the embryo. Then they start multiplying a little more, and after 2 days, maybe out of those 7, 4 or 5 have gone ahead to form a day 5 embryo. So that is supposed to be the best embryo or having the highest implantation potential. After that, we don't really are legally allowed to grow embryos in the lab. So if you see from 12 eggs, you have 4 or 5 embryos. That's why, because of this dropout rate, 4 or 5 is a good number to have at least one pregnancy out of it. Yeah. Now, if you have 5 eggs, you understand the dropout rate. You might probably have just one embryo out of it. Again, the age plays a very
This
big
explains it so well because I've always wondered why you need
Yeah.
so many. I'm
Yeah.
like, won't one be enough?
Because not every egg or not every embryo forms a baby.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have a follow-up.
Yeah.
So now once say we have the embryo frozen, okay, and I've come back after 6 months, maybe after a year or 2, age has obviously caught up.
Correct.
The uterus is not at its optimum also after. Have you seen the success rate of an IVF implant after that? Because embryo is like probably step 3 or something in the IVF treatment, right? So once you see that, what is the success rate for that? Again, you have to go through the whole thing, right, of your health, holistic blood, and the whole approach. And then again, the embryo, like you have your 5 embryos, how are you going to, how do you implant
Yeah.
that? How do you go about that? How do you decide?
So the uterus health doesn't really change with your age unless you are having some pre-existing condition. Yeah. So if you have frozen your embryos at say 32, 33 and you want to come back and use them at 36, if you are overall healthy, meaning your weight is okay, you don't have diabetes, you don't have any other pre-existing medical conditions, the success rates remain the same. That is 50 to 60% per cycle. Correct? For embryo transfer. Means if you put in out of those 5 embryos, if you put in 2 embryos, you have a 60 to 70% chance of getting pregnant in that cycle.
Yeah, no, what I was saying is, suppose now you have got developed, age is caught up in the sense of that there is a.
It's
medical
deteriorated,
thing that
yeah.
comes
No, I
as
think
now.
what doctor's trying to say, and I know somebody who froze her eggs at 32 and recently implanted at 45 and got pregnant.
Yeah.
So the uterine health
yeah.
is actually not as age dependent as your eggs.
Yeah,
So-
I was talking about the other health. Like
I think
your,
she's talking about the
she's talking
hormonal
about the
health, like the
medical
hormonal
conditions.
health.
No, the woman's health. You develop high BP, you develop diabetes. All these factors
Yeah.
then contribute into getting pregnant. Not just the uterus health. I was saying the overall.
Do they affect the?
So the overall health can cause complications
That's what I
when you are pregnant.
Okay,
It will not
not-
stop you from getting pregnant.
Because
Yes.
the embryo is going to implant it.
Yes.
Implant
So
the
if you're already
attachment.
having say diabetes before, once you are pregnant, that can get a little,
Difficult.
yeah.
Okay. Gia. Yeah.
2 questions, okay? One is to do with, are we looking at, before we start with the process of retrieving the eggs, is it similar to we follow a 0 trimester protocol, right? When we're looking at traditional nutrition. I'm a clinical nutritionist. I work on women's health and hormones. So this person. There's a 3-month 0 trimester period minimum, right? So are we looking at a similar 3-month period, or is it shorter than that? That's my first question. Second question, the injections that we're doing, are they, my understanding is of FSH and LH is what may be being injected
Correct.
to get ovulation. So is it that, or is it more than just that?
Yes. So to answer your first question, yes, we do like to give at least 2 months to make sure that you're optimizing your health. Now, what do we do in these 2 months? Nutrition, make sure you're sleeping well, make sure you're taking certain antioxidants. Now, these antioxidants are specifically designed for egg quality. So we want to make sure you're taking all of this and then doing that. But again, if your AMH is low, I would not tell a patient, okay, first you take antioxidants, then we will do the procedure for you, because in those 2 months, she'll lose out all the other eggs also. That's the answer to your first question. Second question, yes, it is FSH and LH that we give you throughout the cycle for those 10 days. And final, on the 10th day, we give you something called as a trigger shot. That is meant for final maturation of the egg, so that when we retrieve it, the eggs kind of loosen out from the follicle. Follicle is kind of, the circle in which they grow, what you see on the sonography. So that's the final injection which matures them and loosens them we don't want you to ovulate. We don't want you to rupture because we want to retrieve all of them. So that's just the final LH. HCG is again like LH, which usually goes up when you ovulate. So that's how we mimic the natural cycle.
Awesome. Anyone else? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Ruchika. I'm an interior designer, and firstly, I love the space. Like, I like that it's not clinical and it's more.
Yeah.
Like,
Agreed.
totally love that it puts you at ease rather than playing on your anxieties. But what I wanted to ask you, I had gone to the gynac weirdly enough this week, and I had gone for another issue, and I was talking about I have PCOS, but I landed up finding out that my AMH is super low. I'm married right now, and I'm not looking to conceive at the moment. But because my AMH is super low, I was advised that and my partner is still undergoing some tests to figure out the quality of the semen, etc. What I want to understand is I've been put on folic acid and all those other things to make sure I'm my egg quality is good. But do I have to go through, if I plan to get pregnant, say next year or after 9 months, not immediately, would I still have to freeze my embryo or egg or something like that? What would you qualify as a low AMH?
Okay. So, to put it simply, anything less than 2 classifies as a low AMH. And the fact that you are not wanting to get pregnant currently, you want to wait it out for a year or maybe even more, it's all the more reason for you to strictly think about embryo freezing. Okay, because age will again add up by next year, and it's not just the AMH, that's not just the number that you are dealing with, it's also the quality of eggs. So it's not like if you're taking antioxidants 100% you're going to have a great quality. We just give this as an adjunct. Whether it helps or not is secondary. Age is going to be your biggest factor, but yes, if you're having a low AMH, you should think about it on a serious note. Yeah, that being said, if you have PCOS, you must be thinking, why do I have a low AMH? So what we see many a times is that even if a woman does not have PCOS, most of the scan reports are labeled as polycystic ovaries. So the diagnosis in the first place is itself not correct. So that maybe, can put you at confusion that, oh, maybe I never really had PCOS.
Yeah, because my periods have never been irregular.
Exactly.
So I've been...
Exactly. And there are many variants of PCOS. It's not just like somebody has PCOS, has irregular periods, has facial hair growth. There are so many variants of PCOS, and everybody does not classify as a phenotype A PCOS, which is like a classical PCOS.
Yeah. Just to add here, a friend of mine was here for the last talk that I came to, and she's got a similar thing. I think if you can sit with the doctors and see, because she signed up, she's like, I'll do it tomorrow. Literally, I think she paid and left. I think
a one-on-one
consultation would be good.
Because you'll go through a lot more sort of understanding evaluation symptoms, and then she can guide you.
Yeah. Because I think having just an opinion on all the questions.
Yeah.
Because you.
Yeah, but this has been so helpful. I felt like I had a lot of questions, but you've been answering it all along. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, Zalak.
Hi, my name is Zalak. I want to ask that once you go under IVF, what are the chances of miscarriage at in later months?
Correct. So it's not like IVF increases your chances of miscarriage. Normally, even if you're trying naturally, 1 in 5 pregnancies end up in a miscarriage, and you don't really understand why. Yes, if you have had 2 or more miscarriages, then we need to do a deeper evaluation of what's happening, and then we can get to a cause. But IVF does not add to your miscarriage rate. It's the age factor, whether you do it naturally or via IVF.
Yeah, Sanchita.
Why would someone misdiagnose PCOS? This is the first time I've ever heard this.
Yeah.
And second, if for a woman it is 28 to 32, for embryo freezing, does the partner's age matter, and what would that range be?
Yeah. So when we talk about misdiagnosing PCOS, first of all, we never label a woman as PCOS if she's less than 18 years of age. For example, if a girl has irregular cycles at 16 years, her report suggests that she's PCOS. You can't really call her a PCOS unless she is 19, 20 or beyond. And again, what we check in PCOS is first, periods, second, hormones, if the male hormones are raised or not. Thirdly, on sonography, we check what is the volume of ovaries and do they really look polycystic. There is also an entity which is called as PCOM. That is, the ovaries just look polycystic, that is polycystic ovarian morphology, but the patient does not really have PCOS. PCOS is syndrome. It basically means that you are, likely to have other metabolic issues also. So it could be just PCOM and not PCOS.
And the second question.
Yes. Age for men, if they are living a healthy lifestyle, not smoking, regularly exercising, then 40 is the cutoff for them. Beyond that, if they are, trying for a pregnancy, then we would like to evaluate them further.
Okay, I think.
I wanted to understand the difference between rounds of IVF and egg freezing. Like,
Right.
why do they say you need rounds of IVF but egg freezing is an insurance? Like,
Correct. So, one IVF cycle means when you're retrieving the eggs, you're making the embryos and you're putting back the embryos inside the uterus in order to get pregnant. That's one cycle of IVF. So, women might, need to undergo maybe 2 or 3 cycles if they don't conceive in the first cycle. Egg freezing, on the other hand, is kind of partial IVF. You're not doing it with the intention of getting pregnant right now. You're just doing it because you want to store it as an insurance. So here you're just starting and freezing your eggs. You're not undergoing through making the embryos and putting them back inside.
Okay, any questions? Yeah.
Hi, firstly, thanks. This is really informative. I just wanted to understand from you. So, let's say you mentioned that you're able to freeze 15 eggs now, and 5 years later, I come back to you and say I want to get pregnant. Do you fertilize all of the eggs that you retrieve? Is there like an insurance policy for the insurance? Or
Great question.
Nice question.
Great question.
We're going to have this on the FAQ of the website.
That's too good.
So, if you're having 15 eggs in the first go, that's actually a very great number. See, at the end of the day, you need one good egg to make one baby. The reason we tell you 12 to 15 or 10 to 15 eggs is that just because we want to increase your chances. So, if you have 15 eggs and you come back, yes, I would like to thaw all of them and make embryos out of it and see how many you would need. You might just get pregnant in the first embryo transfer cycle. You can still store those other embryos. Maybe you might use it for your second child, or maybe you might not use it at all.
And what if, sorry, follow-up question. Sorry. What if the IVF fails? Like, do you
Yeah.
use another embryo?
Yeah. So if you are yourself, correct.
Zalak, it's going to work. All your questions have been about not work. It will work. For sure.
Yeah. So if you have more numbers of, more number of embryos in the first go, say for example 4 or 5 embryos, in one cycle we don't put in more than 2 at one go, because again chances of twins, which is again less than 10%, but still not more than 2 embryos. If you don't get pregnant, then you still have the other 3 remaining, for which again you don't need to take injections again, you will just be given certain tablets to make your uterus receptive, and then we put those inside. Again, here we come back to the start that if you have frozen your eggs or embryos at an earlier age, higher chance that you'll just get pregnant in the first cycle.
Shrishti and Sachi, then Shrishti.
So in case if we freeze our eggs at one gynac like this place, and if we want to like reroute our pregnancy to some other doctor, or maybe we are not sure. So is that possible, or it has to be done at the same place?
Yeah, you want to take that up?
Yeah. I mean, so basically you can move your eggs, embryos clinic to clinic. It requires a national board approval, which takes about a month, the whole process. But yeah, absolutely. You can move, and you can actually move it if you are relocating as well, right? Yeah, so that's absolutely.
Even internationally it's allowed.
Yeah.
So here I think the thing is also and everything happens in one place. So you have that one person you're in touch with constantly, and you get a card, which is so just that safety of being here. But
Yeah, in case if you have to
Yeah.
relocate and you're not
Yeah.
here, so you
Yeah.
have that option.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Shrishti.
So what's the ideal gap between 2 cycles? Like for instance, I've had a friend of mine who went to get her eggs frozen, and I think they couldn't manage to retrieve even 4 eggs in that one cycle. And apparently the quality was not good, so the doctor considered it to be a failed cycle. And then after which he had OHS and a lot of other complications, of course. But in a normal situation, what's the ideal gap between two cycles? Like, I think you answered one question where if you have a few embryos, you don't need to go through the entire cycle, you just take some more hormone shots to, I think, estrogen, whatever those shots are, to get the uterus to be able to take in the implant, etc. But assuming you've exhausted all of the embryos that were ready, then what's the ideal gap between two IVF cycles?
Okay, so you can actually do them back to back. Yeah, like if you've just finished doing an egg freezing cycle, you've done the pickup, egg retrieval, you have got your period in the next 10 days, you start taking the injections again, and that's how you do back to back. Again, if you don't want to do that, you want to give your body a little rest, you know, emotionally, mentally, everything, you can take a break of 1, 2, 3 months and then come back again. But if you're actually doing this and you've not got enough eggs in the first cycle, don't wait longer to go into the second cycle. Like, don't wait for 6 months or more, because then again, by the time you do your second cycle, your AMH would have gone down lower.
Hi, my name is Saloni.
Hi.
So I actually got my AMH tested last year, and I have a history of PCOD, but my value was 10. So I mean, I think that is very high. Is that a concern? Number one. And I also have a recent diagnosis of Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So if I'm considering this, do I wait for sort of to get my labs to get normal, like my thyroid antibodies to get to normal before I even consider? Because I don't know if it affects the quality of the egg. And second is that increased AMH an issue?
Yeah. So usually in PCOS, we do see a high AMH. Anything more than 5, we classify it as a high AMH. Again, we would like to evaluate you in terms of, you know, complete PCOS profile, everything, your periods, your male hormones, everything, make sure that is okay. But Hashimoto's as such won't really come in the way of freezing your eggs. Your anti-thyroid antibodies, that's something which is going to remain high throughout your life. Okay, that's not really going to come down. So you don't have to wait for that and then do this. But at the same time, we make sure that your thyroid hormone, that is the TSH, is under control before you undergo this, because that plays a role in your egg quality.
So the TSH has to be normalized?
Yes, it has to be under control.
And the AMH is not an issue? That 10 value
See,
is not a problem?
again, people feel that अगर AMH 10 है तो आराम से pregnant हो सकते हैं, बहुत सारे eggs हैं, but it's not, it doesn't really work that way. Even with a higher AMH, pregnancy can be difficult because maybe you're not even ovulating regularly, okay? And in PCOS, sometimes we deal with a little suboptimal egg quality, and age just worsens it. So even if you're having a high AMH and if you're not planning a pregnancy, you know, currently or in the next 1-2 years, you should actually think of freezing your eggs.
So there's a lot of talk that goes around about, you know, 6 months before you even start to actually think about conceiving, both you and your partner are supposed to be in the most optimal physical, mental, emotional health. A lot
Absolutely.
of times women, we are constantly stressed about multiple things in life.
Yeah.
So does that also, because I would want that best egg to be used eventually.
Correct.
And it's not in my control. What's in
Correct.
my control is my holistic health, as well as my partner, to make sure that he's worked out, he's in his optimal, he's not junk eating, at
Correct.
least maybe 3 months before this
Yes.
is done.
Yes.
So how much of a
I love
factor
it.
is that? You know,
I love
because-
it. She's
Get
like
on
on
it.
it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just thinking.
Get on the line.
But by the way, so they, just to say, the doctor, obviously you take the answer, but the one thing I love is they have the nutritionist in-house. So
Yeah.
it's like, if you want to get him on the plan, it's like, come here, join me, get on this diet.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's so important for men also. Otherwise, we women just feel the
Yeah, I mean,
responsibility to do
actually,
It is very
Yeah, I
much
would say
important
that
for
there
men too.
was a recent thing that I saw that the
How can it
placenta,
not be?
it's actually sperm derived.
I agree.
So a lot of miscarriages might actually not be
Yes.
our fault.
Yeah,
Yes, of
absolutely.
course.
No one knows about this.
Yeah,
No one
yeah.
talks about it.
50%
Absolutely.
of infertility
Is male fertility, but no one talks about
No
it.
one talks about it, and I think we should. You know, it's not just our health. It's
Yeah.
you also have to be in the peak of your
Yeah,
good
yeah,
health to be able
Yeah.
to be successful.
But 3 months is a good enough time to get everything, you know, optimized and then plan.
Okay, Krishika, last
The 10
question.
days when you're taking injections, is there any discomfort people feel or a difference in the body at all?
Not really, to answer your question. Maybe in the last 2 days, you might feel a little bloated, but again, that's just because the estrogen levels are rising up in your system because you are making more eggs grow. But again, once you do the procedure, back to baseline.
Do you have to take it the same time every day?
A little bit here and there, say 1 hour plus minus, it's okay, but try and take it at the same time.
Okay.
Hi, Nikki. I mean, I have like a couple of questions actually.
Yeah.
One is that if your gynac is not a part of the facility but is outside, you still get to use the facility only for freezing as one of the things that you can do. And the other is that in terms of affordability, what does this look like? Like, what are we preempting this IVF? Like this entire cycle, how do you kind of like preempt what do you want to like think? So there's one part of freezing it, and then there's maintenance, and then there's every year how you do it. So what does that look like over here?
Great question. That was my last question. I just asked how can I ask that? So thank you for asking it for me.
Yeah, so I think the first question, which is when you're saying your gynecologist is, let's say not here. So there are gynecs who do fertility practice and the gynecs who don't do fertility practice. So typically a lot of gynecs are just OBGYNs, right? And they sort of work with us and come over here and sort of, help, let's say Dr. Vishesha, Dr. Radhika, who are, fertility experts to do the egg freezing while they are managing the other aspects of overall health, right? So that is possible. And I think, when you are looking at one egg freezing cycle, basically you need to look at sort of two costs. One is the procedure cost, which is injections, consults, medicines, everything that it takes to get to retrieving the eggs. And second, once you've retrieved, the storage cost, right? So approximately it's anywhere between 2 to 2.5 lakhs. And it's a yearly sort of, 30 to 50,000 depending on the number of eggs, etc. of ensuring that those are frozen and, that's that year-on-year storage fee.
Okay.
And one thing that we've sort of enabled, because I asked this question, right? Like working women who, let's say, don't want to put out an amount like this, right? So we actually have EMI for this service.
That's amazing.
Right. So you actually do a little bit of upfront, and Dr. Naseem can talk about that. You can actually give an amount, which is the base amount of the EMI, and then pay the remaining over installments.
So 2.5 lakhs is the full fee for the egg freezing, and then every year you pay about 30 to 50,000. Okay. So guys, that brings us to the end. Thank you so much for being a great audience to listen, and thank you so much for answering all our questions and having us here firstly to know more. You can do a consult with the doctor, of course, and if any of you are thinking of doing it, please let me know. I'll connect you to them. And I mean, they're all here, right? You can just chat.
You can do this today, you can do this some other day, online, whenever you're...
Yeah, if you want to bring your family or like mums, dads, all that. Partners, forgot about them. Partners, friends, anyone. Most important. Big thank you to the team, for everyone for helping and having us here. Neha from Networking Now is here with the one with the baby. She is so sweet. She messaged me on the side. She went through this IVF process, and when I was telling her about Luma, she's like, I wish this existed when I did it. So she's just literally come with the end product, the cutest little child, to encourage all of you. So please chat with her as well after this. After this is done, Neha's around. Neha's around, and any questions, guys, she just literally is here to encourage us and talk more about it. So thank you, Neha. Fresh out of the process. So thank you so much. Thanks. I think we can get up if there's any questions. And if you haven't done your AMH test, it's inside.
And if you all want to do mini consults with Dr. Vishesha, that's also, that's something that I can do today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Really love. Thank you.